So thank you all for hanging in there with us. I know we're running a little bit late, but we have Laura Bowie, who is joining us right now to help close out our programming for the evening. Laura is the Executive Director of the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, a partnership of the 5 Gulf states with a goal to significantly increase regional collaboration to enhance the ecological and economic health of the Gulf of Mexico. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Laura. I know you had a busy schedule all day long, and thanks for closing out our programming tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. And I have been able to catch the last couple of sessions, and I really hate that I missed the earlier ones because this has been a great presentation so far for our stakeholders in Alabama. But thank you for having me. Like Missy said, I'm Laura Bowie. I'm the Executive Director for the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, and I am just going to provide a little context around the nature of the relationship between GOMA and GoMRI, and just close this out a little bit. Next slide. So for those of you who are not familiar with GOMA, as we refer to ourselves, our mission is to enhance the ecological and economic health of the Gulf of Mexico through increased regional collaboration. And really, you know, it's those last 3 words that are the most important: increased regional collaboration, because it's the vision of the people that created GOMA 2004, so 16 years ago, that the more voices we can have around issues related to the Gulf, the better solutions we're going to find. So next slide, please. So like I said, we were started in 2004 by then Governor Jeb Bush of Florida, who reached out to his good friends, especially Haley Barbour of Mississippi. And from there, they contacted the other 3 governors to determine if there was any interest really in working together around issues that were common to all 5 states, especially issues concerning the Gulf of Mexico. So it was really an experiment in the beginning, if you think about it. No one had ever done anything like this in the Gulf before, which was to address particular issues from a regional, non-regulatory basis, rather than in a state-by-state way, which is how they were doing it. So, you know, as it turns out, the experiment stuck. We're still doing it today, 16 years later. The Gulf states have found it immensely beneficial to work together on certain issues like coastal resilience, habitat restoration, water quality, stewardship. So this is our structure right here. We've always been led by the 5 Gulf state governors. We have an active business council, an active federal work group, and we oversee or administer 2 very robust programs. One devoted to those priority issues identified by the governors every so many years, and the other focused solely on oil spill research. Next slide. We started out, all those years ago, we started out as just 35 people at the very first meeting of GOMA in 2004. But now we're well over 1,000 people that participate in various working groups and teams and committees. We're no longer just the states and the feds the way we started out back then, because the states came together with this idea, and our federal partners very much supported it from the very beginning, and they still do. In fact, we couldn't do it without our Fed partners. However, we also realized very quickly after that that we couldn't do this without our university and academic partners, several national and local nonprofits from around the region, and a robust representation from the 7 largest industries that operate in the Gulf. So that's who you see when you talk about the GOMA network. It's all of that. Next slide, please. So the Gulf states tweak our priorities from time to time, but the role that we play in the region has remained steadfast all these years, which is basically to provide forums for collaboration around those priority issues that are identified every so often, develop tools and pilot projects, like really foundational stuff that helps in coastal management or restoration planning, and to expand the partner network to help create these strategic partnerships. All of these have played a role in our ability to administer the GoMRI program, as you'll see in a moment. Next slide. So right now we have a Governor's Action Plan 3 that's in place, and it has identified our priorities. And those are enhancing coastal resilience, improving data access and baseline monitoring, increasing stewardship through education and engagement, conserving and restoring habitat resources, improving the quality of water resources, and improving the health of non-regulated wildlife and fisheries. Next slide. These are our action plans. I mentioned that we're on our third one right now. We've published 3 so far, and we're working on our 4th. We're actually drafting the contents of our 4th action plan right now, hoping to publish it next spring. You'll notice that each has been signed off on by all 5 Gulf state governors, and that's not always an easy task. They're not all of the same political stripes, if you will, but we're able to find enough common ground among all 5 Gulf states concerning the Gulf of Mexico that keeps us busy. So you might wonder, what's the connection between GOMA and GoMRI, right? Next slide. Well, in 2011, GOMA and GoMRI were both party to an agreement with GOMA was a party to an agreement with BP that's laid out the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative. This agreement was the conduit through which funds flowed at the direction of the research board. This research agreement was signed with BP in 2011, and it lays out how the funds were to be administered by GOMA and the independent role of the research board, meaning that neither BP nor the Gulf states could influence the research or the results. So you have to remember at this time, one more thought. You do have to remember at this time, they were just beginning the negotiations that would later become the Restore Act and the NIFWIF and NERDA settlement agreements. So this was really groundbreaking to have this type of an agreement. It was voluntary at the time, a voluntary agreement between the Gulf states, GOMA, and BP to embark on this very, very independent oil spill research program. And I think all of us who have been involved can say that this was a phenomenal idea, and it should be replicated if we ever get the chance. Next slide. So the partnership between GOMA and GoMRI began, and it's really helped to better connect the state and federal agencies to the Gulf academic community and other scientists, quite frankly, from around the world. Next slide. So in conclusion, I want to put a plug in. We want to continue connecting agencies, resource agencies, state and federals, nonprofits, academics, and our business community. We want to continue doing that all in the name of science, in the name of Gulf of Mexico science. So you're probably all very familiar with the GOMOS conference, and some of you may be familiar with the GOMA All Hands meeting that happens every year. We want to bring those two together from here on out. Our goal is to keep bringing together scientists and coastal resource managers and do it together through a very large conference that will happen every other year. So, I mean, you know, it will become the Gulf of Mexico conference. So it will be the sequel, if you will, to GOMOS after all these years. It'll have about 2 to 3 days of opportunities for scientists to present their research because there's still lots and lots of science coming out as a result of the oil spill. So this is an opportunity to reach audiences interested in oceans and coastal environments, including restoration managers and coastal resource managers. So we had hoped to kick this thing off this coming spring in 2021, but we are realizing that we're going to need to postpone the in-person event till 2022. But I do hope you'll be on the lookout for a preview. We plan to do a virtual preview in spring of 2021 that will really identify what we're trying to do here, bring together the science community with the natural resource management community and the restoration community. These two things really need to be combined because that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where we're going to have a healthy and productive Gulf of Mexico. So that's really all I have, Missy. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for taking the time to join us today. What I know is a really long day for you. So I just wanted to end this all and thank you for hanging in there, everyone, with a shout out to GoMRI for this wonderful and unique opportunity that I've had to not only learn and engage and share about so many different important topics, but also to give me a chance to meet some very incredible people, including my wonderful teammates, like you see here, forging lifelong friendships along the way, like I know many of the researchers you heard from tonight have experienced. Final plug, we've got 2 more installments of our Decade Discovery series. The next is for Mississippi on October 29th, and then the final one is for Louisiana on November 10th. So go ahead. There's going to be a link down in the chat box for you to go there and register for those events, or follow us on Facebook Live through the Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant Facebook page. Thank you all for joining us on this lovely Friday evening. Have a good night, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.